Oh my God. Episode 195. What am I going to do for 200? That's pretty big. 200's coming up. 5 more weeks. Holy cow. This week, my friend Amy Clayton, who's been on here before and is a licensed psychotherapist, is here with my sister-in-law, Kottie, and we're talking about postpartum depression. I am so happy for this episode. I've been trying to do this episode for a while, and these two busy ladies and myself all have very busy schedules, and it's taken us a while to get our schedules to line up. And finally they did. Yay! And I think we had a great conversation about postpartum, about the symptoms of, the differences between postpartum and baby blues and postpartum psychosis. We talk about anxiety, generalized anxiety. We talk about going to therapy. We talk about getting medicated, some of the stigmas around being medicated, when to seek treatment or call your doctor when postpartum symptoms get to a certain point. We talked about our experiences personally with postpartum, with having babies, with the trauma of having babies, and how hard it is, because it's pretty freaking hard. And your body just is ripped apart when you have a baby. So sometimes it's harder to get it put back together. For some people, it's harder than others. So I hope you enjoy this episode. If you are suffering or believe you're suffering from postpartum, you can go to postpartum.net for support groups, therapists, and more. If you're experiencing symptoms, you should ask your doctor to screen you. You can ask your general practitioner. You can ask your OB. You could probably ask your cardiologist. You could probably ask just about any medical doctor to screen you for postpartum depression or depression and anxiety in general. And any time is the time. You could be 7 months have a 7-month-old and still suffer from postpartum. It can just start then as well. It doesn't have to happen right after you have a baby. And postpartum is something that is temporary. So it's definitely worth getting help if you feel you have symptoms of postpartum. I am so grateful to Amy and Kottie for coming on and talking about their experiences, and for Amy sharing her experiences and knowledge about it. She specializes in postpartum as a psychotherapist, and I value her opinion and her knowledge and her experience very much. And I really applaud Kottie for being brave enough to come and share her story also, because I think the point is no one is alone. Someone you know has had or is having symptoms of postpartum depression, and you're just not alone. So it's nice to have a conversation about something, and maybe it'll inspire some of you to get some help or to get some education or to help someone else in your community or your family who may be suffering. So thank you for coming back every week. Thank you for all the well wishes for my brand new my one advertiser, Manscaped. They're not advertising on this episode, but thank you for all my well wishes, because I got an advertiser. I'm so excited. Thank you for all your emails. Thank you for your suggestions for episode ideas. And thanks for coming back every week. If you know anyone who needs to hear this discussion about postpartum depression, please share this podcast with them. And I appreciate the support. So hope you enjoy this episode with Amy and Kottie about postpartum. Well, the heat's coming on. I should have come out here earlier and checked on the heat. I'm so sorry.
It's actually not bad.
I'm totally fine.
I'm the worst producer
menopausal,
ever.
so I'm great.
Are you menopausal?
No, I'm perimenopausal. I'm perimenopausal for like 20 years.
I have been for at least 15.
Yeah.
For sure.
Isn't it
like
fun?
the night sweats. Do you have any of that yet? You don't. You're too young. How old are you?
39.
39.
Oh, yeah,
you're
way too young. Yeah.
Well,
Whatever, bring it on. No more kids. Never have to worry
no,
about
that doesn't. That's
It's
not
not
what that
that-
means.
yeah,
Great.
no.
Never mind. Then I'm good.
I wish it meant that.
No, perimenopausal is like pre-menopause.
Yeah.
So it's like your
all
body's
the symptoms of menopause without the loss of the period. So it's really awesome.
Oh, that's awful.
So you're still fertile.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
You're fertile myrtle, but I have massive night sweats, like to the point where I have to get up and change my clothes. Like my whole shirt is complete. My hairline is soaked.
Mhm.
My pillow is wet.
Just enough to make it annoying that you have to get up.
Yeah. Well, I can't sleep through it because I'm freezing. Because once your body like slows down, you're wet.
Right.
Because you're like sleeping like in wet clothes.
Which is ironic because you're not wet anywhere else.
No, true. But I'm
symptom.
right. I don't have that symptom.
No, but it will.
People do.
Yeah.
People do.
I don't get the night sweat. Everybody gets something different. That's
Yeah.
another thing. It's like a grab bag effect, right?
Mhm.
Like you never know what you're gonna get.
Oh, it's not fun.
No.
And it's been going on forever. And my doctor was like, anywhere between like 10 and 2 years. And I was like, what?
10 years.
It's been at least 10 years for me for the night sweats. It's been forever before we remodeled our house,
Oh my
our other
gosh.
house.
Yeah.
That's how long I've been having night sweats.
That's awful.
It is awful. And I think it disrupts your sleep.
Yeah. Oh,
I
it
think
does. Yeah, it
The
definitely.
hormone
Yeah,
cycle,
I'd
all the,
say.
not
If
just
you
the
have to get up,
sweating.
even if you go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, it disrupts your sleep.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, yeah. But I mean, like, I feel like I go through these sleep cycles where sometimes I'm just dead. Like
Yeah.
as soon as I hit the pillow, I sleep all night. And then I'll go through these pockets where I am not really fully asleep at
Yeah.
all night
Yeah.
long.
Yeah, you're like an alpha.
And I'm not worried. I'm not like running lists. I mean, I have those nights too, but
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, can you just go to sleep?
Right. It's just blank
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I think it's hormonal.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Insomnia is
hormonal,
hormonal.
right?
Yes.
Speaking of hormonal,
Let's go right into that.
I've been trying to get this podcast forever because I think it's really important to talk about postpartum depression
Mm-hmm.
because it is such a real thing that nobody talks about.
Yeah.
But why doesn't anybody talk about it?
I think there's shame in it. I think there's shame that there's not that like instant maternal connection with your baby and you're supposed to be perfect and you're supposed to know exactly what to do. And I remember the few celebrities that would come out about it were instantly overshadowed by something else.
Really?
Like I remember when Brooke Shields came out about something, like Tom Cruise spoke against it. Well, I mean, I have to go back and look for sure, but I was like, why is this not getting the attention it deserves? And she wrote a whole book on it. It was amazing. But it kind of just gets quashed again. It goes right back under. And it's a serious issue with physicians too.
How so?
So I had it with my first one.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to my OB, and I am a licensed practitioner of mental health. And I said, I have postpartum.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked at me and she said, oh, you're fine. You got a healthy, happy door prize. Go home.
What?
Oh, yeah. She was like, you're overreacting. And I'm like, I'm doing my own mental status check. Like, I literally dreamt of leaving the baby on the neighbor's doorstep last night. Like, I'm not fine. Like I don't want to get out of my chair. I don't want to explore other rooms of the house. I'm holding her breastfeeding, thinking about how she's going to get in an accident when she's 16. And I can't handle this when she starts driving. Like this is not normal activity. Right? So I went back to her again and I was like, I have postpartum. And she was like, well, then maybe you should see somebody.
What?
And she's a prominent doctor in Beverly Hills. So I won't name names, but I was like, okay. So I called some colleagues and spoke to them and got treatment. And for me, it was therapy. I didn't need medication and I was breastfeeding and, there's certain classifications of medications you can't take anyway. And I was very serious about not taking anything during delivery. Even I didn't want any pain medication, nothing. So
you crazy.
crazy because I got a C-section too.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
They can do that?
They did an epidural, but then I was straight
okay.
ibuprofen after that.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no,
I was
no.
like, what?
No, but best
I don't even think that's legal.
Right.
No,
Is
but
that
they
like a
did.
magician with a box and a
God.
saw?
It was bad news. I mean, part of my postpartum came from they overdosed me on the epidural. It was a really crazy story. They had a code blue next door while I was in the hospital. And so they had me under and then they looked and I worked at Cedars. So they knew me there and they were like, somebody's crashing in the room next door, which means a mom delivering is losing.
Oh my God.
Right. So I was like, just go. And I was strapped to the table. They're like, are you okay? I'm like, yes, go. So they all went, the whole team went, and some up and coming young anesthesiologist came in and was like, oh, they prepped you, but they left. And I was like, yeah, there's a code next door. And she's like, well, I'm just going to give you the epidural. I'm like, they already gave me the dose.
Oh.
And she's like, well, it doesn't say here that they gave it to you. I'm like, they didn't have time to chart it. And she's like, I don't think they gave it to you. And she dosed me again.
Oh my
And I
God.
started going down. So then they ran back into my room.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was gnarly.
You were like,
So-
curd brew.
curd brew over here. Yeah. So it was gnarly. They had me, so they got her out and she was okay, but then they rushed me to post-op and I was like on oxygen and they kept slapping my face, telling me to breathe. I'm like, I don't know if I was speaking or not, but I'm like, I am breathing. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, I feel like I'm breathing. It was gnarly. So then the second child, they had all the records and I hadn't, sued or anything. So, but they, they were like, holy crap, be careful. So they underdosed me. So I felt it when they cut.
Oh my God. Amy.
Have another.
I know. Well, so I didn't want to have another. She actually turned and I thought I was going to have a VBAC, but it didn't happen.
Oh.
So they were cutting. First of all, the suction didn't work.
Oh.
Then they cut into me and I was like, I now know what it feels like to be stabbed in a dark alley.
Wow.
Thanks a lot. And the doctor was cracking up. I'm like, no, really? He's like, you can feel that? I'm like, yeah. He's like, everybody stop. They like put a little bit more. I was like, okay, I'm good now. I think you can continue.
How
It was
awful.
gnarly.
Yeah,
So to and through.
Is that your trigger?
Yeah.
What? Oh, being cut and feeling it?
No, just your whole experience. Pretty much like it's confirmed I'm never having another kid at Cedars.
Not at Cedars, just under it at Cedars.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was luck of the draw. And honestly, like.
It was
I
luck
know-
of the draw, but I had a similar problem at Cedars.
Did you?
With my epidural. My first epidural, they was a spinal. And I was paralyzed immediately.
Did you only want an epidural and that you got a spinal?
I wanted an epidural and he put it in my spine and went, uh-oh.
Yeah, so.
And I went, uh-oh. Who says uh-oh? And my legs went floom. Yeah, they just completely collapsed.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'll be right back.
Yeah. Oh,
it was
Jesus.
bad. And I threw up from the time I had it. I threw up and I had that terrible headache afterwards.
Yep.
I threw up I pushed for 3.5 hours and I threw up every time I would push, I would vomit.
Yep.
So they kept giving me popsicles. I'd push and vomit.
And throw up.
Push and vomit. And it was from the epidural because the second time with Isla,
No problem.
it was nothing.
The difference between a spinal and epidural is like.
Is a hair.
Yeah, it is. It is a hair. I
That's
don't know
what they
how
tell
the heck
me.
they do that.
They told me what she said was afterwards, she said, you must have a very thin epidermis around your
It's your
spinal
fault.
column.
Yeah.
So next time you come in,
Tell us that.
let them know and they won't go so deep.
How about just let them know they screwed up last time?
Right? Well, I did that. Like next time I came in, I was like, listen, this happened last time. And I got the head of anesthesiology.
Oh, yeah.
She came in and was like, doop. And I was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be? I can do this all day long. It was so awful with Georgia.
Oh.
And then I couldn't, when I had the spinal and the drug wore off, I had full pain, full feeling immediately. It was like, boom. I went from completely paralyzed to full pain.
Yeah.
And then they dosed me again and I go right back to paralyzed and immediately start throwing up
Why
again.
were they giving you spinals?
They weren't. It was an accident.
So a
Well,
epidural
is
is the
it-
first layer. And if they push
Oh,
it a teeny
okay.
bit more, it's instant. So epidural just means it's a slower progression.
I got an
Medicine
epidural
enters.
for my first
Right.
and then spinal for your second, which is common if you've had a C-section because an epidural has a shelf life.
Right.
And a
So-
spinal, you'll have more time in case there's scarring and they need to keep you open longer.
Right. So spinal is instant paralysis. So that
Yeah,
they
that
can
was
like
awful.
go to
Yeah.
work immediately.
Yeah.
It's like they use it for emergency C-sections.
Oh, so it was okay. It was
And then
accident.
an epidural.
That
or-
was an accident,
Yeah.
which caused my brain fluid to leak, which caused me to have this. I don't know if you remember this, but you
Yeah, I
remember my Aunt
remember.
Diane stayed for so long? It's because I couldn't sit upright for like 10 days.
Yeah.
And I was on Vicodin. She gave me my last pill and she went, okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to be really angry for about 2 days. It's okay. You're
And
just
she knew
coming
this
off Vicodin. Because she was a labor and delivery nurse.
Oh,
She was head nurse of
awesome.
labor and
Oh my
delivery
God,
in
you're
Georgia.
so-
She came to help me with delivery and went, yeah, I'll be staying for several
You're
days
so
after.
lucky.
So she would bring me the baby and then she'd go, okay, go back to sleep. And she'd take her out and everybody else was out with Georgia. And I just wasn't up and running for like 10 days. It was a long time. And thank God for her. She literally gave me that last pill and went, this is what's going to happen. You're going to be so angry for 2 days. You're just withdrawing from this pill. Just take a deep breath. It's okay.
I love her.
You're going to
I
be
don't even know
fine.
her and I love her.
She was amazing. That was her passion,
Yeah.
and she was really good at it. She was just a great nurse. She passed away.
She was great.
And I miss her a lot. But she got me through that for sure. And I think, why don't doctors say that to their patients about Vicodin specifically? Because she was right. I was fucking mad.
Yeah.
For 2 days, I was grinding
But if
my
you
teeth.
knew that was going to happen, you'd anticipate it and you knew that it had a shelf life like the epidural, like you'd be waiting for that. And, I think there's a lot of things I wish the medical profession would do, which is give a little, like, buy me a drink first, right? Like, give me a little more information. Like, I know it makes sense to them, and it's just common sense if you're in the medical profession. But, you know, when I had the C-section, I didn't realize how many nerve endings would be cut and that I didn't feel anything, or that I wouldn't be able to sit up on my own for several days. So, you know,
no one told you that.
No, nobody said anything about that.
Did anybody tell you any of that?
Yeah, a lot's changed.
Yeah. Has it?
Yeah.
A lot has
She's
changed.
got a 4 and a
A
1-year-old.
1-year-old.
Okay.
And let me tell you something. You don't go to a pediatrician appointment without filling out a mental health form every single time.
That's good.
Because I went back
Yep.
to my OB 2 years after I had my first and said, I'm going to educate your staff on postpartum.
Every time you're there.
Yeah.
Your OB,
I was
the
so
pediatrician's
angry.
office, and it's a postpartum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, they are really aggressive about it now.
I hope that's broad, not
Yeah, but it's also a form. So you're like, am I really going to circle 1? You know what I mean? Be like, as I'm holding a baby. But no, I mean, I was never a 1, but yeah. But I was like, you know, I think everyone circles like, are you anxious about, you know, ridiculous things in the middle? Yeah, of course.
Right.
What is on the form? I know. I've never had that form. Do you remember?
It's
I don't know which one it is.
it's like 10 questions, and it'll be like on a scale of 1 to 5. And it's like, have you cried every day for the past 5 days? Are you having suicidal thoughts? I believe these were the questions.
So is it like a Beck depression inventory, or is it like specific to postpartum?
It's specific to postpartum.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you connecting with your baby? You know.
Right. I remember walking around and seeing some of my friends who were just like holding the baby like this, you know, no problem, slinging him around. And I was like, how are you doing that?
Yeah.
And then like I'd see somebody I hadn't seen in a while, and they had a newborn around the same age, and they were just totally at ease. And I'd be like, but you weren't a C-section, right? And they're like, oh no, yeah, I was.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
doesn't that make you feel really bad about yourself?
uh-huh.
Did it make you feel bad about yourself when you were? I did.
Oh, when you saw people doing it with such ease?
Oh, I thought you meant about having a C-section. I was like,
No.
Oh, no.
I was like, yeah, I'm
I
good.
was actually pissed about that too, though. I wanted to have natural delivery.
Oh,
Well,
had
it really
natural birth.
messes with your hormones, they say.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
does
like-
it?
Yeah, because when you do natural delivery,
Oh, yeah.
there's something that happens hormonally in your body, whereas that is like just pulling a baby out of the sunroof, being
Right.
like, all right, it's
Out
here.
of the sunroof.
You know, like it's just like you're done.
Yeah.
And it
There's a
doesn't.
trade-off, though.
Yeah, I guess labor processes your hormones. It does something.
Yeah, your body
Yeah.
goes through the natural process.
I think it's when I remember this now that you mention it. I think it's when the baby passes through the birth canal, it
Yep.
triggers
Yes.
like a bunch of hormone release.
Yeah.
But it has to pass through the canal.
Yeah, not through the sunroof.
and they
Not
can't
through
put
the
it back up again.
No.
No.
What is it? Maybe they should put a mop in there and just and then you go, okay, something passed through here. Let's
Well,
trigger.
I remember working on the 8th floor, and all these women would come in for these TVSs,
What's a TVS?
transvaginal sling.
What's
And
that?
it's a repair of the muscles that happen to stretch out when you have children.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, I don't have to have one of those because nobody came out that
A transvaginal sling.
One of my friends is like, I can never ride a bike again. I was like, how often are you really riding bikes? Like, really?
Why can they not
might
ride a
want to.
bike?
Because they pee everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was like, well, don't ride bikes.
is that
I mean,
right?
It's a pretty easy solution. I haven't ridden a bike in years, so.
Have your kids done this yet? It hurts when I do this. So stop doing that, right?
Oh, yeah. I've got a
Well-
4-year-old Bert, so yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Her son is my
Oh, it's
husband.
a boy.
Leanne looks at him almost every time and goes, how did I not have this child? Like, this is my
so
DNA right
funny.
here. This is my husband.
That is Bert Kreischer in a 4-year-old. It's really amazing, actually.
It's crazy.
Because, you know, I've said this before about my own kids. What's interesting about having kids with someone like Bert is that Bert is so quirky and he has so many distinctions that you think he's doing them on purpose, right? Until you have a child who starts doing some of those distinctions and you go, oh, that's not on purpose.
Yeah.
He's never here.
Right.
So she didn't
learn that from
learn
him.
that from him.
Yeah.
That's wiring. So then I had to adjust the way I processed Bert
Yeah.
because then I had to forgive him.
There had to be more empathy there.
I did because there was a lot of stuff where I'd go, There's no way you don't know that you're doing that.
Yeah.
And then I'd have a 2-year-old doing it and I go, oh, there's no way he knows that he's doing that. I mean, there's no way. And then, but I didn't have her son. I had nice little tiny shades of Bert in my kids. He is actually Bert.
no.
He's like concentration.
He is. It's like if you cut off like Bert's arm and then grew it into a person. It's kind of like that.
He's like a mini Groot.
He's like a mini Groot. He is. And I watched Teddy going, wow, I have to have even more empathy for Bert now, because even more of what I thought you were doing on purpose is really not happening. This is not on purpose.
Yeah.
This is exactly how you're wired. And it's hard too sometimes, because a lot of it with Bert is about boundaries, about holding a boundary. He can't do it. He just can't do it. He can't do it. And to see it in a 4-year-old is so similar. It's exactly the same. So
and
you
more
go,
age appropriate.
and more age appropriate, but somehow he never got whatever it was that he needed to figure out how to just hold it, like with himself, not even with other people per se. Just like, I will only eat 2 pieces of pizza. He can't do it. No, it's not possible.
No, right. Or I will not say the following.
Exactly. Or I will not buy another hat at Lids because I have 8,000 hats already from Lids. It's the same thing. And then Teddy will, if you give him a bowl of lollipops, it's over. Right? He'll open one, taste, open one, taste, open one, taste.
So impulsive.
And when you say, hey,
you need to do a photo shoot with the 2 of them.
2's enough, he's like, my brain is bleeding. And I'm like, oh my God, Bert. Bert says the same thing to me. You can't talk to me like that. You're saying who I am is a wrong person. And I'm like, I'm saying maybe 4 lollipops is not the best plan.
Right.
That's all I mean, don't read into it. That's all I'm saying.
So much passion.
Yeah.
It's so much passion. I think Teddy does something similar to Bert too, where I will say to Bert, hey, maybe 2 lollipops is enough. And Bert will hear me say, you're a disgusting piece of shit. And you are a terrible human being. And I cannot believe you would ever do something as egregious as take a 3rd lollipop.
Right.
That's what he's heard me say.
That's how he reacts to it.
No, he'll repeat back to me what I said. And it's not at all what I said. I'll go, no, actually exactly what I said was, are you sure you want that 3rd lollipop? Word for word.
Right.
But what he thinks I meant was this.
Right. He puts his own meaning into it. He ascribes his own little special
meaning. He does. And then swears that I said that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to start pulling up the Nest Cam and showing you what I said. Because I'm not going to be held accountable for you said I'm a horrible person. When what I said was, are you sure you want to do that 3rd lollipop?
And Teddy's reaction is with the finger. You are so rude.
No, he does not.
You are so rude. Your words make me so sad.
Please tell me you have that on video.
Oh, are you kidding? Are you
just
kidding
like
me?
Bert.
That's genius.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's very rude. You are so rude. Your
but
words
it's the
make me
feeling
so
after.
sad.
It's so amazing.
Why are you so mean? I was like, oh my God, how did this turn around on me?
Oh, I
You're
told
the
him.
mean lady taking away the
I was like, your tummy's gonna hurt. He's like, you don't know that. I was like, oh my God. I was like, fine, eat it all. And I know that's not the right answer, but I'm like, learn it on your own terms.
Sometimes it's experiential.
Right?
Yeah. Sometimes they have to try that. My kids had a play date with a friend, and the mom is overly permissive, and they went to Soup Plantation.
Oh.
And I will frequently say, this was years ago, and I will frequently say to them, so make sure you're having protein, throw in some vegetable, and then if you want some carbohydrates, go crazy. But like, first you put the fuel in, and then if there's room for the extra stuff, fine. Like, I'm not like, oh, be careful.
Yeah.
But fuel first, right? You don't put sugar in a gas tank. Like, start off with good gasoline, and then you can, put additives in later. So they did not have anybody saying that to them. She returned both of them to me like this. It was like, what did you do? And she's like, I just let them have whatever they wanted. And I was like, genius.
Right.
Now, her child's this small and has the metabolism of a freaking rabbit.
Yeah.
And she's dying to put food in it. And she has no clue that my kids were just normal people.
Yeah.
And so they came home and both of them were like, one of them was on the toilet and the other one was throwing up.
Oh my God.
So I said, I don't think I need to say anything to you about this experience, except that maybe limiting yourself sometimes is good. And they were like, I got it.
Wait, I know exactly what they ate too, because I had to stop going to Soup. I had to stop going to Soup Plantation because I was like sitting in a booth and I get buffet anxiety. It sounds crazy, but
No, it's not. It's too much. Too many
it's
choices?
too much. No, it's not even too many choices.
What is it?
It's that
That it's gonna
everyone's
run
going to
out.
eat the things I want to eat.
Oh,
That's Bert has it.
It makes me so anxious. I hate and I work in TV, so like it's like craft services. It makes me shake.
you got to run. Get that thing first.
Yeah, and soup plantation. I had to stop going because I was like staring. They'd have all the salads and the soups, and it's like gross. Who touches any of that?
Right.
And then at the end, they've got the pizza buffet and the pudding. And I was like laser focused. I'm like, the pigs are all eating the pizza. It's all gone. I was like, I couldn't handle. I was
Bert
like,
has
I gotta
that
stop.
same anxiety.
That is really
It's awful.
funny.
It's so stupid too.
It's a real panic, though.
It
Like
is.
he looks like a cornered animal at a buffet. He literally in his eyes, he's like this.
It's darting.
He's like
And you're
darting. He is.
He took 3 tenders. There's only 12 in there.
He watches
so rude.
everybody.
God.
Like it's never like they're not going to reload
It's
everything.
It's scarcity. That's what
Is
he's worried about, the
scarcity?
scarcity of the available food source.
He is.
It's
I
very
guess.
primal.
We were at my grandmother's house for Easter
Right.
one year, and Isla was a baby, like Holder's still a baby, so she's probably like 9 months old or something, 8 months old. And he's watching the line at the buffet, and at one point he goes, "You're on your own."
Oh
and
my
just
God.
leaves me with both kids and gets in line and takes. And he was like, "Oh, they were definitely going to run out of your grandmother's dressing. There's no way I'm coming all the way from California not having some dressing." I didn't get any. Because he didn't make a plate for me. I'm sitting there with 2 kids. George is probably 3.
You're just a nursing mom, so who cares?
You're on your own. He
know.
literally said, "You're on your own." I was like, "It's my grandmother's."
You're like, guess what? That's literally the tagline for my life right now. You're on your own.
It's so true. Okay, so
Oh my
postpartum.
God.
I printed out these things from the Mayo Clinic
Yes.
about the difference between the baby blues,
Oh yeah.
postpartum, and why don't you tell
So-
me what? And then the third one was
Postpartum psychosis.
yes.
So first of all, most people think postpartum is postpartum psychosis, which is so wrong.
Mm.
So baby blues happen, they say, and it changes every year, but most roughly it's between 70 and 80% of all women. So that means in the first few weeks after delivery, or in the perinatal stage, which is around birth, you get this like anxiety, concern, mild depression. You can get some restlessness, some agitation. You know, it's super common. Your hormones basically like triple, and then they evacuate your system, and it's just Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in there, right?
Right.
So baby blues, normal. Then there's postpartum depression, and that's about 1 in 100 women will get that. Oh no, I'm sorry, 1 in 10 women will get that.
Right.
Then postpartum psychosis is 1 in 1,000.
Wow.
So that's how rare it is. And that's what you see on the news of like, woman in Texas took her kids to a lake and drowned them one by one. And people freak out about that and they miss the middle. It's like they'll acknowledge the baby blues and they'll say, well, you don't have postpartum psychosis, but they don't touch the middle area.
And what is the middle?
That's postpartum depression.
No, but what is that?
Oh, God. It's baby blues. It could be baby blues extended.
Uh-huh.
It could be more severe than that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had patients who had massive anxiety, like they've never had in their life, could not sleep, like couldn't sleep because they were waiting for the kid to cry, couldn't sleep because they, you know, wanted to sleep at the same time as the baby, but they were worried about the baby sleeping too soundly and not waking up. I mean, there was no thing that could make them feel better. And then there's this whole terrible choice you have to make with, if you need a class medication that you can't breastfeed with, you have to stop breastfeeding. Well, that makes me less of a mother. Right. So there's all these, you know, instances where you're faced with, this is best for me, but this is not best for my baby. Or this is best for my baby, but it's not best for me. And there's such a balance. And dads can get depressed too. So that is the biggest chunk. Well, most people get the baby blues. The biggest undiagnosed category would be postpartum depression.
Right.
Which is directly following, which is when I told my OB and they were like, oh, you're fine. It'll clear up.
Well, I'm going to read what this Mayo Clinic says. So baby blues are mood swings, anxiety, sadness, irritability, feeling overwhelmed, crying, reduced concentration, appetite problems, trouble sleeping. And that's pretty much me every day. So do I still have baby blues?
Yeah.
No,
well,
not
technically,
really.
you're still postpartum, right? It's after
I
delivery.
am.
Yes.
Okay, so postpartum depression. Is depressed mood or severe mood swings, excessive crying, difficulty bonding with your baby, withdrawing from your family and friends, loss of appetite or eating much more than usual, inability to sleep or sleeping too much, overwhelming fatigue or loss of energy, reduced interest in pleasure and activities you used to enjoy, intense irritability and anger, fear that you're not a good mother, hopelessness, feelings of worthlessness, shame, guilt, or inadequacy, diminished ability to think clearly, concentrate, or make decisions, restlessness, severe anxiety and panic attacks, thoughts of harming yourself or your baby, recurrent thoughts of death or suicide.
I would make an amendment, 2 amendments to that.
Okay.
One is you do not need to feel like you're not bonded with your baby to have postpartum depression. That's a misnomer. Everybody thinks like, well, I'm connected with the baby, I must not be depressed. Not true.
Okay.
You can have bonded feelings with the baby, and they're overly bonded, which causes anxiety through that stage. Another thing is that I don't know if they mentioned this, that you don't have to have postpartum psychosis or postpartum depression right after baby blues. You can be okay for a few weeks, few months, and get it at 7 months post-delivery.
Is that you're shaking your head? Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of people, and then you're thinking, but I was okay.
Yeah. There
So
was
what the
no
heck's going
connection.
on?
I stopped breastfeeding 3 months ago.
Right.
And you Google it and it's like, as soon as you stop breastfeeding,
Your
this could
oxytocin
kick in.
levels
And I'm
drop
like,
yeah.
this doesn't make sense.
How did you figure out you had it?
There was no denying it.
Well, but
I was
did
having
you get
panic
it
attacks.
diagnosed as well? Or were they like, oh, that's
Yeah.
just anxiety?
Well, I was having anxiety when I was pregnant, halfway through my pregnancy. And I kept calling my OB and I was having panic attacks where I was wearing my Apple Watch. My heart rate was like 148.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this is crazy. So then I'd call my OB. And then finally my OB said to me, he talked to me constantly. And then he goes, you need to see someone. You need to see a cardiologist and you need to see.
Good for him. I'm glad.
He was great. He is
You're
great.
supposed to always rule out medical issues
He's
first
like,
because they've missed
see a
stuff like that.
cardiologist and then he gave me a referral for a psychiatrist. Yeah. And he was like, I need to make sure it's not your heart first and then figure out if this is something going on with you mentally.
Right.
So a cardiologist put an EKG on me for the weekend, was like, you're totally fine.
Right.
I see. It was Bert's cardiologist. He's like, pregnant women, first kid, come in here constantly, increase the blood flow, blah, blah, blah.
Well, but panic attacks mimic heart issues.
Exactly.
And most people don't realize
So he's like,
that.
you don't have a heart issue.
Right.
Then I talked to the psychiatrist and she's like, I could put you on a small dose of Zoloft. And I went to San Francisco with Bert that weekend. And I was talking to him at breakfast and Bert's like, you're not going on Zoloft. I was like, why? He's like, you're pregnant. I was like, okay. And then I decided not to.
Oh.
And I was fine. And then I had Teddy. Everything was great. And I remember watching videos going, God, I was so good for the first 3 or 4 months. And then it was July. It started happening in July where I was scared to drive.
And he was born in October.
Yeah. And I was scared to go places. And then going to work became really hard. And then everyone started checking in on me and my family. And that made me feel crazy.
Right. Why are you checking up on me?
Made me feel nuts.
Yeah.
So then I went on Lexapro. Went to the same doctor, went back to her. And it all kind of went back,
Yeah.
But I was having massive, massive panic attacks.
Yeah.
And it
Did
was.
you go to the ER at all or no?
No. I had Xanax and I would take Xanax when needed.
Okay.
I also have really bad health anxiety. So I'm terrified to take, when I got home with both kids, I didn't take any painkillers.
Yep.
I was.
Just ibuprofen.
Yeah.
So,
So,
which they don't tell you, by the way. I was popping that like crazy because my incision went open and everything, and I had to go back. And,
Amy,
sorry.
you are just the champion
I'm a
of
poster
a
child.
horrible, right?
So, I was taking 600 to 800 milligrams of Motrin because I couldn't take pain medication, and it's not great for your liver. So, my lactation consultant's like, "You need to stop taking
I was
that." And
doing the
like,
same thing.
okay, yeah, you just like white knuckling it. Yeah.
I was afraid I wouldn't wake up in the middle of the night.
right.
Yeah. So there was no denying it with Teddy, where it just hit me like a brick wall. Literally, my vision went out at lunch one day and it triggered my brain, went, you're not okay. And that just triggered something in me. A wallpaper at lunch just started moving and I was like, oh my God, I'm losing my mind.
Right.
And then it almost accelerated it that I was like, something was wrong.
Well, you were
and I
finally
dug
keyed
into it.
That. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, she got the message. Thanks.
I was like,
Yeah.
So, but I went on Lexapro and I went on it for about 6 months, I think.
Mhm.
And then I went off and I was totally fine.
Yeah.
And then you're terrified with your second. You're like, it's going to happen. you're waiting for it to happen.
It's interesting you say that. How did you feel after you had your second?
Fine. But I also did cognitive behavioral therapy in between.
Right.
So the panic attacks became so manageable because
Right.
I knew
What
it was
they
just a
were.
feeling. It was no different than feeling extreme excitement or sadness.
Right.
So it was like, it took the power away from it,
Yeah. Well, plus you were talking about it. So it wasn't hidden and inside and like a secret that you
I did
had.
CBT for like 4 months.
Yeah, I love CBT.
Every day, every week. And I started with like twice a week. And the first thing he said to me, he's like, if you take Xanax, don't bother showing up.
Right.
Wow.
Because it numbs you and then you're not going to do the work.
He's like, every time you take a Xanax to cope with your panic or your anxiety, the next time it creeps up on you, it's going to be 10 times worse. And that's what it does. It just escalates.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It puts it in a little bank account, right? And once you go to cash it in, it just goes, and here's all of it.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so then with the second child, would you say, did you have postpartum with Lola?
I don't know. I don't really know because
If you did, it was
it doesn't
muted.
present itself for me like depression,
It's
and
anxiety.
I have
anxiety,
generalized anxiety. So it's
Right.
like, it's an
Which,
itch
by the way,
I've got to scratch.
It's the worst anxiety
It's
ever.
awful.
And I
Just to make you feel good, Kottie.
I feel for you, and I would like people to understand this because
Yes.
I have teenagers that I see that have generalized anxiety disorder, and the parents are like, "So what causes it?" And I'm like, "Everything and nothing."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Well, it must be something." I'm like, "Please don't ask your child that. Please don't sit and target your child and ask like, well, is it this? Is it this? Is it this?" I'm like, you are going to literally make them anxious in that moment. It can be sitting in a full row in a play and not being able to get out. It can be going to a party because there are too many people. It can be being at home and your parents aren't there and you don't know where they are. I mean, it can be anything. And it's so crippling sometimes if you don't deal with it. So plug for if you feel anxious in many different situations, you are not crazy.
Right.
See somebody. It is a very real diagnosis.
And it's very treatable.
It's very
Yeah.
treatable.
Yeah.
And
It's
but
very
it's very
manageable.
frustrating, kind of like, the ADD stuff, right? Where you're experiencing it and, nobody understands it from the outside.
Right.
So it's not easy.
No,
Yeah.
it's not.
So, but at least you got the CBT for, which is amazing.
It's a game changer.
Yeah.
And I'm surrounded by a lot of people with anxiety, and I keep telling them, I'm like, you have to do the work. Like, you have to.
Yeah.
Please
And it
talk to
doesn't
your
take
niece,
long.
Isla, about it, please.
It
Doesn't take
doesn't
long.
take long to do it.
I'm
That's
back in it. I started again
Yeah.
because of COVID. I'm just nutty. Not that's awful to say, but you know what I mean? COVID has, again, it's that
exacerbated.
itch I'm just, waiting to scratch, and I find stuff.
Right.
It's
Well,
like,
I will say this about being nutty, being married to someone who's nutty and having at least one, maybe two nutty children. Nutty makes for a very rich person.
Yeah.
It makes for someone who thinks outside the box, who's a creative problem solver, who anticipates problems where other people would not.
Yep.
I think it
You got
makes
that right.
a great person.
looking
ready
always.
to pounce.
It is much more dynamic and interesting person in some ways.
It
So
also makes for a person with grit who's had struggles, who's had to
Yes.
get through them and doesn't have everything handed to them.
I keep saying to Isla, it's your superpower.
Yeah.
You just have to figure out how to harness it. It's like having Wonder Woman with her like lasso and she doesn't know how to spin it.
Right.
It's not,
Right.
it doesn't do you much
You'll
good
get
if you
it
don't know how to
soon.
spin it.
Yeah.
Once you spin it, you can lasso freaking a jet. You see Wonder
Yeah.
Woman? She lassoed the invisible jet.
Right.
I
I know
mean,
you can't see the jet, but I swear she did
she's
it.
got it.
But I think if you have generalized anxiety, and then dealing with postpartum, there's a part of you that goes, I should just be like gracious right now. That like I have two healthy kids.
Yep.
That my usual triggers aren't just scratching and knocking at the door. So then I kind of like put my stuff on a shelf and go, let's focus on what's really important. And I think a lot of moms do that. That you go, I should be happy that I have two healthy kids, because I follow this woman on Instagram who both her children have a rare disease, and she's in the hospital twice a week with both of them. And I go, she is a warrior.
Yeah.
Like the fact that she even blow dries her hair every day.
Right.
I'm like,
It's insane.
I have two totally functioning children,
Yeah.
help at home. Like I've got it all.
Yeah.
I don't even shower.
Right.
Like, and I look at her and I'm like, she is amazing. Like thank God she has, those kids have her as a mom, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But I'm glad you bring that up because I think guilt is a part of motherhood that I would love for us all to just uproot and remove. Because I felt guilty too, just like you, for having my own feelings. It was my therapist finally at one point said to me, emotional maturity is being able to hold two feelings at the same time. So for you to be like, I actually hate my 3-year-old. And obviously I love, and I'm so happy that I have her and that she's healthy and I'm grateful.
Right.
But right now I fucking hate you.
Right.
Like there's two things going on at one time.
Right.
And I think that we grow up somehow thinking it's only one. Like I hate you. And then that causes you to go, I'm a horrible person and I suck at everything and I don't even deserve this child. And I think people get in those cycles and it makes them angry sometimes or resentful when they can't see both sides of the coin. And guilt should never be part of taking care of yourself. And I am guilty of not taking care of myself because I feel guilty. Like yesterday, Isla called me. She is having tummy trouble. We went to Sandy's the night before, and Sandy is Chinese, and Sandy had Chinese food from Monterey Park. And the 3 white people who were there, the super white people with our super white stomachs, woke up with some terrible stomach trouble the next day. Because we eat whatever they serve. It's her birthday. It was her birthday. So of course we eat what they serve. I wake up, stomach problems. Georgia, stomach problems. Isla, stomach problems. But Georgia and I are like, we're good. Isla calls me and goes, I can't do it. You got to come get me. And I know what she's going through. This is legit. So of course I was like, well, I have this appointment with my trainer. I don't ever put off my trainer, but I'm going to have to go get her now. But I had a moment where I actually had to think, don't feel guilty, for saying no. If you can't come right. No, this is what it was. I was in a conference call and I couldn't just leave. And I was feeling very guilty about not being able to leave.
Right.
So I was like, she was in the bathroom, texted me and I said, listen, I'm in the middle of a call. I can't leave right this minute and I'll be there as soon as I can. And she went, sounds good. And I went, well, why can't I just do that?
Right.
And not feel guilty that she's sitting there an extra 15, 20 minutes for me to finish.
Especially when she said, sounds good.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
But my guilt is, I should go right now. I should just stop this meeting. Yeah. She's having diarrhea in the bathroom
for me.
Exactly. Yeah. But anyway.
Well, it's interesting you brought guilt up, and that's why I asked how you were with your second. With my second, I was so cognizant, and I had also done the work in between, and I was like, I'm ready for anything. And also everything's easier the second time around, right? I mean, that Love's commercial or Huggies commercial. Well,
depending.
Physically, yes, depending.
But
you have more information and knowledge on how to do things, right? So
you're a bit more
first thing,
secure.
Yes, my first one, I'm like washing her in like a little tub that adjusts into the sink. And the second one, I'm like, throw me the kids. And I'm like holding one in the shower and I pass it off to Wade and I hold the other one and I pass her off,
Yeah.
So that was so much easier for me. That I was looking down at her all the time going, oh my God, I love you. I'm so happy to have you. And then I'm looking at the other one going, I'm so sorry. You got the other version of me. So I had that guilt. I had the guilt of not being it's like completely burdened with postpartum on the second time around.
That's interesting. Yeah. There's a book that we just read a novel in this podcast called The Push. And it is partly about that, where the woman did not connect with her first child. It is clear she had postpartum. This is only a portion of the story, but she clearly had postpartum, had no connection with this child, and had the second baby and was like in love.
Right.
And had those feelings of like, I did not connect with you, but I connect with this one and I'm sorry, but I can't deny this connection. And so confusing. I believe I had postpartum, even though I guess I was sort of diagnosed. With Georgia, I don't know if I had postpartum, but Georgia had a really hard time sleeping. And so, we would have to walk with her and she was a chunk. She was like carrying the couch.
Right.
She weighed so much. And I'm so small that I remember just being so physically exhausted from her sleep schedule for probably the first 4 or 5 months of her life. I would have your sister Annie or my mother-in-law come over and just help me. She was not a cry it out baby.
No,
I tried it.
Walk for hours.
Couldn't
at night.
rock. She wouldn't rock in a rocking chair. I tried
No, you had
all
to be
the sleep
standing,
method
right?
stuff. Had
Standing
to be
and
walking.
walking. That was me with Sydney.
And I was like, I would cry
Yep.
because I was so exhausted. So I don't know if that was depression or just sheer exhaustion, because I don't remember being moody
Yeah,
or
it's sheer exhaustion.
despondent, or I just was exhausted.
Yeah.
Isla, I remember thinking, I would like to throw her on the bed and watch her bounce.
Yeah.
I would like that.
Yeah.
I would like to watch
Now
her
we're entering
roll
postpartum.
down the stairs. That would make me feel really good. And then when I finally sought
This
help,
is while she's crying, screaming, or no?
it was this was when she was a little older. She was a dream as a baby. She would fall
Oh,
asleep
really?
before I got her swaddled.
Oh, how funny.
So I didn't have any kind of, I don't remember having any kind of depressive feelings until she got a little older, probably about 7-8 months. And then I was just angry all the time. I would wake up in the morning angry, and I was angry all day, and I was angry at nothing and everything all day long. So I don't think my depression looked like depression. It looked like rage.
Right.
And so I
But there's
wanted
that
to,
extreme irritability.
It was-
that's exactly what
yes.
I'm talking about. It can hit at 7 months.
it was probably somewhere right around there, because
Yeah.
by the time she was walking, I had gone to the doctor, because I was like, when I finally sought help, I was in the girls' bedroom with them, playing with them. And Isla was super active. So she was doing something that was probably not safe for her, that I was trying to help her manage.
Right.
And it wasn't going well. And that's the moment when I wanted to throw her on the bed and watch her bounce. So I went out of the room, closed the door, went in the bathroom, picked up the lid of the toilet and broke it on the toilet. And I went, I think I need to go see the doctor. Because in my brain, I kept going, this is not right. This is not right. And I can't help how I feel. It was so intense.
Yeah.
I felt like I was going like shaking. I was squeezing myself and shaking to try and get the energy out of my body,
Right.
because I wanted to. I never had felt that way toward Georgia. It was just Isla, but Isla was the baby, so I don't know why. I don't remember losing my patience with Georgia.
And thank you for doing that, because every time I go into a rage, I'm like, well, Leanne broke a toilet.
You're welcome.
I always go, well, Leanne broke a toilet, so I guess I could do this and still be under that bar.
I set the bar.
Was it
Yeah,
the
you
toilet
did.
or the toilet lid?
It was the
seat.
lid. I took the lid off and broke it
Toilet
over
would have
the
been
seat.
amazing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I took the lid off and went smash and watched it shatter, and I felt so much relief.
Yeah.
And I went, I need to go to the doctor. So I went to see my regular general practitioner and said, this is what's happening. She said, I think you need to be back on the pill. I think you need a slight shift in hormones.
Yeah.
Let's try it and see if that works.
Yeah.
It worked so
Life
fast.
changing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that hormonal shelf just goes off and
Yep. She said, let's put you on the ring, because it releases all day long, slow release all day long, and see what it does for you. And it was like everything just calmed down.
Yeah.
It was so crazy, because that is clearly a chemical problem. That's not, I'm not a rageful person. I don't think I've ever done anything like that since that time. I've never like broken anything but yeah, I remember
and it comes
feeling
up from deep inside.
it's like almost, it's primal.
Yep.
It's nonverbal.
Yeah.
It's not even seeing the visual. I would see Isla bouncing on stuff.
Right.
Not me throwing, but
So
her bouncing.
It's
right.
it's very kind of, it's reminiscent of OCD, right? There's like these, when you have OCD, you have what they call intrusive thoughts. And they're thoughts that happen to you without your permission. So you'd have a flash.
That's
And
right.
you're like, oh God, no. That's the thought I don't want to have. I can't have. I didn't ask for it. And a lot of people experience that with postpartum depression. And, when you get into psychosis, it's more visual and auditory hallucinations and stuff. But that vision of like, for me, it was, she's driving and she's got her license and she gets in a car wreck. And I'm like, I can't handle this. I can't have, no, she's going to stop aging right now. Right.
Right.
So those kind of visions are just, they come in without your consent. You're not sitting there thinking of them.
No, they were like a flash.
Yeah.
It was exactly like that. Like a lightning bolt of a visual of the baby, like being thrown and bounced.
Yeah.
And I felt relief after I saw that.
Yeah.
Which was really scary. And then I would go, that's not good.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really unhealthy.
Yeah.
Like that's scary.
Yeah.
But then I always, and I think a lot of women do this, I can figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
I got it.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. I can handle it. I just need a nap. I just need a minute. I just need to have someone come over and take care of the baby for a day, and then I'll be better. That's not true.
Right.
No.
When you're in that kind of chemical altered state,
Yeah.
it's not true. You need to go get something to help you, someone to help you. Maybe it is talk therapy. Maybe it is CBT. Maybe
I
it's,
wanted more of that. Like when it happened to me with Teddy, it was so scary. Doing weird stuff like I wouldn't get in elevators by myself. Like it was scary.
Mhm.
Where I go, I'm losing my mind and no one's telling me. And my therapist, I remember that's when I started the CBT. And I asked him, I was like, so do you think this is like hormonal? You think like my hormones have crashed? Maybe like it's been 7 months, because I was Googling everything. I, referenced my own online doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, it doesn't matter. And that infuriated me.
I love
it
that he said that,
infuriated
though.
me.
But it doesn't matter.
He was
right?
like-
so he's got to treat the problem. Who cares what the?
He's like, it doesn't matter what's causing it.
Right.
We're treating the problem.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but no, if I understood, if you told me my hormones have crashed or this happens to your body after 6 months and that explains the timing, then I'd be able to be at peace with what's happening to me.
right.
So
But all the unknown is making me feel like I am losing my mind.
That is a good point, because so many people are like, first of all, why is this happening to me at 7 months? Or when is this going to end?
Mhm.
I mean, postpartum depression resolves.
Mhm.
It will eventually resolve,
Mhm.
even if you don't treat it.
Right.
It's a nasty ride, but it will resolve. Postpartum psychosis, not so much.
Right.
Um,
What happens with postpartum psychosis?
something has been triggered
and you stay in some state of psychosis
unless it's treated.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's scary.
It's almost like, when somebody goes and has
like PTSD.
or like a schizophrenic break,
Mm.
right? Like somebody can have schizophrenia and it's dormant for years, but then they go to college and it's too much for them to handle, and a switch is flipped,
Mm.
right?
I thought that
So-
switch flipped in me with Teddy, where I was like,
Right.
because we had an uncle who was schizophrenic and it's genetic. And it came out in like his early 20s. And I was
Right.
like, it was passed along to
For
me.
women,
Like,
it comes out much earlier. So
that's
you were
what my
way past.
He was like, we
yeah.
can rule that out.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, phew.
Thank God,
Yeah.
thank God.
I was like, like
But to have that on your conscience is that, especially if you don't talk about
you're going
it.
through the checklist going, do
Right.
I have this? Like,
Right.
no one's explaining this to me.
Yeah.
And I guess in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter, but it would be so helpful
If
to
you could
to understand it.
So here's why it doesn't matter. Postpartum is a confluence of issues. It's like sabotage on so many levels. Financially, you are compromised in some level, right?
Mhm.
All the hospital bills, the doctor bills, everything you're going to be facing, that happens. Socially, it's attacking you, right?
Mhm.
You're going to be isolated from the friends that don't have kids. You're going to be, flooded by in-laws you didn't want to have. You're going to be like, it gets you on that level. Psychologically, if you've never done it before and you have no idea what you're doing, you don't feel good about yourself, you're worried, is every single thing, you're baby proofing long before you ever need to baby proof. You don't know what,
Mhm.
what's up and what's down. Emotionally, just how you feel on a daily basis is your body's hijacked from the day you were pregnant, right? Like, I always tell the husbands when they come in, he's like, oh, my wife. I'm like, you're so obviously loving and wonderful, but you don't know what she's going through.
Right. And there's no way you could.
And he's like, no, but I know. I go to all the visits. I'm like, I understand. But you go to work and you forget that there's a pregnancy at home and she's at home, and every gurgle or gas bubble or kick or nausea, like, is literally every second of the day.
Mhm.
She's constantly reminded. So not the same, although I love your effort, like,
Right.
but I try to like educate them that they can't.
Possibly.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
not possible.
No.
But so there's so many different areas that it attacks you from.
Mhm.
That is what causes it. It's not just, and plus biochemically, it's all the hormones that, they triple and then they evacuate immediately and it takes time to regain them again.
Mhm.
All of those things happening at the same time is the perfect storm,
Right.
And
it's no big shock that we're tribal people, because if we all lived in a tribe, somebody else would handle the baby when you go through that stuff, and
Right.
everybody, it could normalize probably faster, because sleep deprivation is very real when you have a young baby, especially if you're breastfeeding. what am I going to wake Bert up to put a baby on my boob? No, I'm the one waking up all the time. And sleep deprivation is so very real. And I can't imagine how that affects you is just everywhere. Yeah. It's in every part, not to mention your hormones, you know.
But that in and of itself, I mean, if you have watched college kids that are sleep deprived just from staying up on, doing papers, not the ones that are
partying.
You watch them and they're like, huh? And they get angry and irritable, and then they sleep, they have to sleep double just to come back to where they were. I mean, you can get sleep-induced psychosis. If you don't have enough sleep, you can actually bring yourself to psychosis that way. So, that is a huge part of it too.
It is. Yeah. The social part. And it's all just a big shit cocktail.
Yep.
It is. It's a big shit cocktail. And, also good. It's the holding the two feelings at the same time.
Right.
I feel like no one ever gives voice to the part that just absolutely sucks about being a parent in general, but especially when they're so small with the no sleep and the no want for sex. And I don't want to put on makeup. Not that I put on makeup anyway, but I don't want to do anything. I don't want to see anybody. Everything sucks. Everything's hard.
I used to do new baby groups. And I had a woman in one of my baby groups who was hysterical. Her husband came with her to the 6-week checkup, and at the 6-week checkup they're like, oh, you're all good, you could start having sex, or like it was like a 4-week checkup, you can have sex at 6 weeks, and he was like beaming, right? And she's in baby group going, there ain't no way in hell, there's no way in hell, I'm not doing it, right? So it gets to be about 7 weeks, and he's like, so, and she's like, the doctor said 6 months. And he was like, she did? She's like, hello? Yes, she said 6 months. What's wrong with you? And he's like, okay. So then we're in baby group, and she's at like the 4.5 month mark.
Oh my God.
And now she wants to have sex. Right? So she goes home and she goes, hey, you want to? And he's like, we can't for like another 2 months. She goes, I was lying. Stop it. I was like, hysterical. But nobody wants to talk about all of that. I mean, and our group was great because it was a postpartum baby group. It wasn't regular baby group.
Right.
So you were encouraged, like it was like outdo each other.
Yeah, right.
Like talk
Give me
about
all the shit.
Stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think about the sex part a lot because I think like now it's been 15 years since I had my last kid. But sorry to talk about this in front of you, Kottie, but Bert's like at week 4 going, and tick tock, like as soon as that 6-week mark hits, it is over. And I was not emotionally ready because I know you both had a C-section, but when you have a natural birth, everything about your vagina is completely unrecognizable. Even 6 weeks after, everything is still very swollen. Yeah. Everything is still very, I mean, I didn't like take a mirror and check it out, but I could tell just by
you didn't feel like you were back to yourself.
I felt like a single car garage was still a 3-car garage. And I was like, I don't want anybody's business anywhere. I was embarrassed. And even though why this has happened, it's an obvious, I just pushed a baby out.
Right.
I was really embarrassed. I was very modest about that because I just I felt very imperfect. And not that I felt perfect before, but I felt damaged.
Right.
I had an episiotomy. Well, I tore and then they cut me. And so I had this big stitch. Ooh. I was scared that was going to be really painful.
Or open. Yeah.
And I was like, I just didn't want to deal with any of it because I'm sleep deprived. I'm trying to figure out how to be a mother. I have a baby that won't sleep. And I'm doing all this by myself. And Bert's like, hey, baby. 6 weeks on Friday. And I'm like, you can take the 6 weeks and shove it right up your ass. I was so not
You're perfectly not sewn ass.
And you're perfectly not sewn. And I'd said to him, what if your dick had exploded? And then they put it back together. Would you be like, let's take it for a test drive?
Yes, he would.
He would. He said, I totally would. I'd have to. And I'm like, I'm feeling the opposite. They just exploded my shit and put it back together. And now you're saying you're going to put something in it? I don't want anything in it. I don't want a tampon in it. I don't want anything in this thing. Yeah. It was so unnerving. That piece really unnerved me.
Yeah.
Of that part of my body I thought was going to be changed forever because it takes a long time for it to kind of recalibrate.
Yeah.
And not that sex is all that your marriage is about, but sex, if sex is working great, it's like 10% of your marriage. If sex is not working great, it's like 90.
Right.
Where all of a sudden it's everything.
Yeah.
And it became everything for Bert. So I started having to have sex to keep him regulated completely against what I wanted.
Right.
Because
so then the resentment starts growing.
It wasn't a resentment. Maybe it was a resentment, but
I mean, having to
I was angry.
Pretend to be in
I
the
was
mood.
angry that I was asked to do that when I had just done this thing.
Well, you're like, I'm taking care of these people and now I have to service you.
Exactly
and
what
I
felt.
And I don't want to be serviced at the moment.
I articulated that.
Yes.
And it didn't really, my brain is bleeding.
Yeah.
So surprised.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, you cannot have this lollipop.
There
my
are
brain.
other outlets for that.
Exactly. But I can't believe he's the only man who at 6 weeks is like, bada bing.
No.
And I can't believe I'm the only woman that at 6 weeks was like, fucking no way.
Yeah.
And there's a big disconnect with that.
Even with the C-section tribe. I mean, I don't know if you had this, but I mean, people like your stomach deflates.
Oh,
and then there's a flap.
And it never goes back.
Right?
And then there's a flap.
There's a flap. Like it just goes.
It's just like.
What do you mean there's a flap?
Like that your stomach doesn't go right back in right away.
Well, my stomach isn't all the way back in.
But
either.
there, it just you're
there's
just
like
kinda,
a dead zone.
There's like a dead zone, and also there's no nerves there.
Yeah.
So it's very, it's just odd. And getting back that kind of, you know, I mean, especially with me, like when I opened up again, that was no fun. So
No.
having to go through the infection period with that, but there's just this whole. Like I have been taken apart like a bizarre anatomy doll, and I don't think that's supposed to happen right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's just, even though it wasn't vaginal,
Right.
there's just a whole
Still some trauma.
right. There's a physical trauma that happened to your body, regardless of how that baby came out. That is like, can I just have a minute?
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm also taking care of a new human that I'm just trying to focus on not killing.
Yeah.
For a year. Like I remember our first birthday party. We were like, we kept her alive for a year.
All right. We made it.
We seriously had that conversation. We're like, the first birthday is all about celebrating the fact that, you know.
She made it.
She made it. Yeah. It's crazy.
It is. I found being a new mother extremely traumatizing. I found it also very rewarding. But I think that always goes without saying. What asshole hates...
I knew I'd crush this.
You know, who?
No,
I mean, I did a good job as a mom. I was fine, but it was completely traumatizing to me personally. Just the physical part of it was awful. And I don't know if you know this, but I had a date rape in college. So I had all of these unresolved things with my vagina that I think just kind of came all back when I had a baby.
No, the body holds the memory.
Yeah, the body totally helped. I mean, I buried the incident for like 6 years and didn't even remember it. It came back to me in a complete flash, and I went, holy shit, I've got to tell somebody this right now or I'm just going to bury it again.
Right.
So I think I had that piece that brought all this trauma right to the forefront that I had to deal with also. And I am not the only woman that was date raped in college who then has a baby. And I don't know in the moment that I put two and two together as to why I was so shaken up when I had a baby. But later, I definitely think those two things were related.
Oh yeah, because
completely.
Your body's going, none shall pass
Yeah,
in both incidents, right? Like, so you're like that trauma kind of reveals itself in a different shade, and like it doesn't matter that it's a different situation with somebody you absolutely love. It's hold on, I'm not okay with this right now.
Yeah, I don't want this right now. I'm broken.
Yeah.
Can you let me be broken for just a minute?
Yeah.
And he just couldn't let me be broken.
Yeah.
He had to have that
You're
third
always
lollipop.
beautiful to me.
Yes.
Like, shut up.
That's not what's happening here. Well, of course not. I know that in my brain,
Right.
but my body's
It's not
going,
helping.
no. My whole body was going, no, for a lot of stuff. Not just that, but for the lack of personal time your personal, not that I had tons of personal time to start with, but you did have some. And for that to be just totally taken away. And both of you probably, like I, were older. I was 33, almost 34 when I had Georgia.
Yeah.
And so you've had this whole life before. I wonder, I'd be interested to know, maybe you know the answer to this, if postpartum is more prevalent in older women.
It's more prevalent in younger women.
Is it really?
Really?
Why?
I think, I don't know, but I remember the research on it being at the time I read it, and who knows if they've come out with new studies, because I've been a member of Postpartum Support International forever. They attribute it to a lack of knowledge and a lack of preparedness, adding to the anxiety and having to figure things out, and like the financial insecurity and everything. Whereas when you're older, you have, I think they probably attributed some of it to there's a desire for kids. When you're older, sometimes you're like dying to have them. And, it's a pointed, specific purpose that you're doing this for. And the funny thing about that is I had a lot of people who came to me who had infertility, and they went to like in vitro or all sorts of lengths to have a baby. And then they had postpartum, and they were like, I'm the worst person in the world because I just spent $60,000 trying to have a kid. Now I don't even want it. And I'm like, nope, postpartum is postpartum regardless of how you got there.
Right.
Right? Like it's just, and it's all going to be okay. And what doesn't come out in the wash will come out in the rinse. Yeah. But just hang in there. We're going to get through this, Right. But they felt like I'm the biggest asshole on the planet, that I went through all of these lengths, and like people from all in my life knew exactly what I was going through. And I've cried on everybody's shoulder. And now I'm like, take this baby away from me.
Yeah, right. So someone that went through that? You don't have to name them.
No, yeah. And she was like, I can't believe I'm about to say this. I was like, what? She's like, I cannot believe I wanted this so badly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the hardest job ever.
And then again, guilt. Again, right there, guilt.
Right? She fought for so many years. She's like, I cannot believe that this is what I wanted so badly. Yeah. I'm like, it doesn't take away from the fact that it's just hard. Right. It's hard.
It's really hard.
It's a grind. I'm like a 40-year-old with a 1-year-old. I'm like, it is a grind.
And it's also the one job you can't quit.
No.
Nobody
can't walk away.
I mean, you could.
Can't walk off the job.
We've seen that happen too. But yeah, you can't walk off the job.
I had someone walk off the job. Yeah. I was 4. She walked off the job.
Yeah, that's true.
And she came back, and then she walked off again at 13. And like, I'm done.
Yeah. But it's amazing how naturally it came for you.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of
it was
my dad.
Yeah, but
it's nice of you to say, Kottie.
Yeah, but to generally have like someone that literally walked off the job, and you did it. You just slid right into that role, and it's so natural for you. I look at you, and I look at Annie, my sister, and her sister-in-law doesn't have kids, but I look at the two of them, and I'm like, they were born for this. Like I was not. I'm not totally effing it up, right? By any, but like. Right. It doesn't come naturally for me. It's like a man had a baby. Right. Like in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's
You're
not
like,
just
I have
say
to do
there's
a little bit more research. I got to do a little bit, like it doesn't just flow.
Like I'm not like, but
But why do you think that? Because I think you're a good mom. I think you're a good mom.
I'm a fun mom.
You are a fun mom.
Yeah, I'm
so
a fun mom.
You're not the same mom I was. But does that really matter?
No.
I think sometimes it just, in your body if it feels like it's easy.
Oh, you think I thought it was easy? Well, I never thought it was easy. But it was really hard.
But some people, and maybe it's, that thing about you should never compare somebody's outsides to your insides because it ain't going to match.
Well, that's true.
Right? So, sometimes you can see people and they're just handling it with ease and doing their thing, and you're like, huh.
People do make things look effortless.
Right. Yeah. And for them, I mean, I've asked them like, has it been hard for you? No, it's been great. And you continue to watch them and they're totally fine.
Right.
So when you look at that, you're like, oh, not my experience actually,
Right.
Yeah. And then you go, I wonder if their kids are like so chill because that mom's like, it's so amazing. It's so easy. I'm like, did I just trigger little demons where they're like, she's off, we're off, we're all off.
My favorite friend in the world, who is the sweetest person on the planet, has hellions.
Okay, that makes
me
feel better.
She's the kindest human I have ever, kindest human.
Yeah.
How are you? What's going on? I've been in her home. my kids have had sleepovers there. I've seen her behavior fluidly throughout life. Like we were in baby group together. Sweetest person ever. Her kids were like, like.
Well, some of it is just nature, you know, and you have to parent what you're given.
Yeah.
Georgia, I've said this a million times. After we got her sleep figured out, probably about 6 months old, she didn't really sleep through the night till she was about 22 months old.
Right.
And then I had a baby at 25 months old. So, but she could get to sleep. She just didn't stay asleep. Other than that, that was the perfect baby toddler. Georgia was just easy and lovely and very articulate and able to say, you know, Mommy, I don't like the green beans. And you're like, okay, well, how about some broccoli? That would be great. You know, just like one of those where you're like, how in the world and who is this angel who's descended? And then Isla shows up and is perfect in the first 6 months, just excellent. Walking at 9 months.
Oh my God.
Not talking until pretty late. She almost completely skipped crawling. She just went straight to walking and climbed on everything, jumped off everything, decided to climb out of her crib at 18 months. Didn't process language until much later. So I felt like I had a feral dog.
Right.
Like I had to go like, I had to be physical with her, not spank her,
right? No.
But I had to physically redirect her. I'd have to pick her up and move her over here to do something else. I'd have to, you know, if I was going to remove a toy, I had to swap it out. Whereas Georgia, I could say, I'm going to take the teapot and we're going to go over here and get this teapot. Oh, okay, no problem.
She had transitional issues.
They just didn't. Well, she just didn't. I don't think she processed language.
Right.
Like I couldn't communicate with her the way I could with Georgia.
Yeah.
And so you have to. None of that's anybody's fault.
No,
it's not Isla's fault. It's not Georgia's fault. It's not my fault.
Could be Bert's fault.
Could be Bert's fault. Might be Bert's fault. But when
everything's Bert's fault.
Yeah, I think that's a good path to take. Everything's
I look
Bert's
at
fault.
myself as a mom and I'm like, this is like if Bert were forced to be a mom. Like the triggers, the anxiety. Like I was telling Leanne, we got flu shots the other day. And baby Bert was in the back seat and he's like, it's burning. Is your arm burning? And I had a moment where I was like, is my arm burning?
Oh my God.
Both of our arms are burning. I was like,
we may be a trigger for each other.
Totally, we're a mess. Yeah, he's trigger. He's like, it's so hot. Is your boo boo hot? I was like, a little bit, I think.
Maybe we should never mind. Don't try to go to
which
the
arm's
ER.
yours in?
That's funny because that is how Bert is with anything with our kids. If there's a panic, he goes into a panic, and now they're both in this massive panic tornado.
But I see him sometimes when he would be like, you know, at the window scaring everybody and being silly and like, whatever. It's just
that's
cut,
what I'm
whatever.
like as a mom,
right? Like, and he's like, you got to cut. You're fine. You know, like,
and he's the
just
fun
takes
parent.
it in stride.
Yep,
but other times, you know.
Not always.
No.
What's interesting too is the child that actually is most like him is Georgia. They're wired very similarly, and he struggles with her. And Isla, they're like peas and carrots. And then I struggle with Isla.
Right.
And Georgia and I are like peas and carrots. Georgia's like one of my closest souls, right, to me. She's just, I don't want to say she's one of my closest friends because I try not to make her my friend.
Right. But you connect so easily.
Yes. Like from my soul. I always say she gave me my heart and Isla gave me myself because I was able to watch myself in Isla because I was also very active. I was also nonverbal.
You were active.
I was so crazy physical as a kid, climbing and physical.
Yeah.
But Bert's very athletic.
Right.
But
I'm just remembering you at the farm.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I forgot we saw each other at the farm. Yes, I'm still pretty physical. So is Isla. But I watched Isla and learned so much about myself. And I watched Georgia and learned about Bert, but I learned about love in a way that I had never experienced it.
Yeah.
And I was able to, you know, obviously I love Isla as well, but Georgia's my first.
Yeah.
This is the first time that I felt this kind of love where there was no baggage at all from any place.
Right.
But anyway, I don't know why I got off on that tangent. But Bert, sometimes he struggles a lot with Georgia and is super easy with Isla. So we try and balance each other. Bert and I've had a lot of conversations about how we parent the other kid, both kids. And when I see him going off track with Georgia, I can say, hey, let's go have a chat.
Right.
And he does the same with me with Isla. Hey, let's go talk about this before we move forward.
Right.
And we don't seem to have to do that with the other kid. Like I'm never off track with Georgia and he's never off track with Isla. Well, never is a big word.
I've gotten a few of those phone calls
From
Bert.
about me?
Everyone's gaslighting me in this house.
my
I was like, no one's gaslighting you.
You're like, you're going to tell
I
me
was
this?
like, and
I
he
grew up
goes
with
down that tangent where
He
I go,
does.
get back on track. Like, you're being a little creepy right now. Like, you this is more so in your head than in reality. He's like, you're doing it too. I was like, no, I'm not trying to do it, but I'm just saying.
And then your parents will do it and he'll go, I have no one. I have no one. I was like, because no one will hook their trailer up to your delusion.
Right. Oh
No
my
one is going to say,
God, that's
yes, Georgia is on drugs all day, every day. No one's going to agree to that because she's not. She's not.
Yeah, I got that phone call where he's like,
Oh
I'm
my
a drug tester. I go, you're being so creepy right now. And he's like, you don't know. I was like, did mom and dad ever drug test us? He's like, no. I was like, exactly.
She's
I'm like,
17.
You're
Come
fine.
on.
I was like, you're fine.
It's because he knows himself.
It's because he knows himself and it's because, she's a typical teenager. Every once in a while we'll catch her in a lie.
Right.
Because
And
she's a
moody.
fucking teenager.
Right.
And she doesn't want to hug her dad every time he wants a hug.
Yeah.
I've started asking them for hugs because I feel like they're grown-ups practically. And I just like you asked me for a hug, I ask most people, can I give you a hug?
Yeah.
So part of it is being a girl.
Knocking on their door
I
instead
knock
of
on
just
their door.
opening the door.
I do it every
Very
time.
important. Yeah.
He doesn't. It's my house. It's my house. I get to walk in their room anytime.
Have
I'm
fun
like,
with that. You're not going to always see something you like to see.
well, that and
Or they'll FaceTiming somebody and you're not as presentable as you'd like to be.
well, the other part of that is I feel like you're teaching them that they don't have a place here.
Right.
This is your place.
And boundaries.
And boundaries.
And boundaries.
Amen.
Yes.
Right? Like I always tell,
Boundaries.
I tell Sydney, like, you can't have a room like this when you go to college. Your roommate is going to kill you.
Yeah, totally.
So like you need to come correct with this, straighten it out. Not because I told you to, but because you need to be a respectful human.
Well, that's
You
the
know?
same thing I try to say to my kids. This is about life skills. It's not about me being in
Right.
control because
Right.
I think I need to be in control of everything. And I'm like, no, actually,
Yeah.
if you don't figure out how to run the dishwasher now, where are you going to figure it out
Right.
on your own? I mean, not that it's brain surgery, but then you start doing washer, dryer. Like Georgia, a breaker tripped the other day in our house, and I said, "Do you know how to tell when a breaker's tripped?" And she was like, "I don't know what a breaker is." And I went, "Let me show you,
Yeah.
because you're going to college. You'll probably live in an old house somewhere off campus at some point."
Mhm.
She couldn't even find it. You know what a trip breaker looks like?
Yeah.
It looks tripped.
Right.
And I was like, "Which one is it?" And she went, all looks the same.
We're handier than most. I'm just saying.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
when I was in college, I lived in an old house
Mhm.
and my roommates, we had one phone line, 4 people.
Oh God.
And AOL and the internet had just started.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, hell no, this is not happening. So I called PG&E and said, how do we get a phone line? They're like, you got to dig a trench first.
So
And
you
I
dug a
was like,
trench?
So I dug a trench.
Yeah, totally.
And then I said, does anyone want to help me dig a trench? And they said, no. I'm like, then this line's mine, bitches.
Right?
That's all there was to it.
All right. You
It
don't
was
help, you don't
hysterical.
get.
Yeah, that was my line.
Funny.
All you can share.
Well, I am very grateful for you because Bert has you.
Yeah.
Because you guys have such similar anxiety. I believe Bert has generalized, but he also has OCD. I don't know if you have OCD, but he has been
No.
diagnosed with OCD.
Oh,
He
he's
has
more
intrusive
OCD.
thoughts.
Yep.
He has rituals he has to do before he does certain things. The OCD doesn't go to cleanliness. It's totally skipped that bone. But
It doesn't always go to cleanliness. That's definitely a misnomer.
a
lot of
misnomer
people- yeah.
completely.
They're like, well, my kid doesn't have OCD. Look at their room. I'm like, okay.
No,
Have you ever
it's
seen
not about
Hoarders?
right?
Like,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, I guess so.
That's the other side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He may be more approaching that side. But I am grateful. I don't know if I ever told you that, but I've meant to forever. I am really grateful he has you because you are the only person in his family that he listens to like that when he gets in that space.
You've been
He
mom for a
doesn't
long
believe.
time. You don't even know it.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Annie doesn't have the same type of anxiety.
No.
She has anxiety, but it's not the same. And your dad doesn't have the same type
No,
of anxiety.
not
Is she in the middle?
Annie's in the middle.
Okay.
But Bert you guys are so similar. I mean, the way that you your health anxiety is almost identical. The two of you. Almost identical.
That means you should not talk to each other when you're having health issues.
No, it's the best.
It's not
the
true.
best.
You don't do what Teddy does to you?
Him. I mean, no, which is funny because
do you feel like
if we're all going down, it's like, you start seeing people, you're like, hold on, wait for me. I'm jumping in the hole with you. But it's so funny because someone once told me the only thing that takes away your fear of flying is sitting next to someone who's more afraid of flying than you.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's so true.
I'm not as bad as that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But
I don't have it that bad.
when I call him, I had a health scare a few months ago. Remember? I tested positive for an antibody for Hep A. And I was like, I just had Hep A last month. Right. I had headaches. Was I eating out of dumpsters? Or sipping out of a pond? You didn't remember it? Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, did I drink too much? And I don't remember eating pond water or something. And my head just started going where I was like, did I give Lola Hep A? Who else has Hep A in her house? Oh my God. And then we all started Googling it, and we were accidentally Googling the other kind of Hep A where it's or the other kind of hepatitis where you get STD. And then they're like, has Mike been faithful? I was like, wait, what?
My God.
And I called Bert. No, I was on the phone with my dad. And my dad's like, you're fine. And then Bert calls me. He's like, what's going on? I was like, I have Hep A. He's like, you don't have fucking Hep A. I was like, how do you know? He's like, because I just Googled it and you're totally fine. I was like, I am. He's like, you're fine. And let me tell you something. If you weren't okay, your doctor would have called you. He wouldn't just push your results through.
Right.
And, it's it's just knowing that we both have the same type of brain.
Right.
And it's easy when one of us is in that spiral and the other isn't. You can talk them off a ledge.
Right.
Well, I think what is told to me by my kids and my husband is that there is, just like a man doesn't know what it feels like to be pregnant, I do not know what it feels like to have anxiety disorder. I don't.
Yeah.
I am dead inside. I have almost no anxiety. So when he's in that space, he gets really angry at me for not completely validating the insanity that's going on in his head. And I cannot do it. I try so hard to be sympathetic, and I'll say, I understand that you're really upset. I understand that you're panicking. I understand why you're concerned about this.
Yeah. You're validating up the wazoo.
But it's not until it comes from someone who has that same or similar processing. He feels like I'm negating as I'm validating. He feels like I am saying you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
Placating him. Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what he feels like. And I don't know how, he doesn't know how I could fix it. But I talked to
fake a panic attack. And then he'll believe you know how he feels.
he would totally sniff it out. He would totally sniff it out. That's
not what I really recommend, FYI.
No, I know. But I've said this to Kottie before. I'll call Kottie about it, and you've said to me before, it's hard sometimes to see what they're panicking about, to make it legit also, because you're in a logical state and you go, this is so fucking whatever. But he can hear from you, this is so fucking stupid, whatever.
Right.
Where he can't hear it from me.
Right.
Because you know what it feels like
because
to be in
it's more about the
spiral.
feeling.
Right. It is.
It's about being in that headspace, and it sucks. And you want someone to validate that they're there and acknowledge how hard it is, but go, you're going to be fine. Yeah.
Well, I can do all of that, but I don't know viscerally how hard it is. Yeah. That's why the validation doesn't matter to him when it comes from me.
It's true.
When it comes from Isla or Georgia, because they both have panic, he can relax. When it comes from you, it's way better, because my kids shouldn't have to deal with that. They shouldn't have to be responsible for their dad coming off of a ledge. So it doesn't happen often.
Right.
But it doesn't work for me ever, because I just don't know viscerally what it's like.
Right. Yeah. Well, it would be like Bert trying to calm you down about some of your pregnancy stuff. Like, I feel this weird pain here. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
You're like, I need to talk to a doctor or another friend who's been pregnant. You know what you're talking about.
Yeah. What's interesting with Bert is that if something happens to me,
he knows everything.
Oh,
right?
no.
Oh, no.
Oh, it's really no big deal. It's no big deal. No big deal.
I'm that way with Mike. I'm like, nothing's taking him down.
I know. Well, that's the same. He
doesn't freak out.
No, I had this spot on my lip where they were like, I think this may be cancer. I'm not sure. We're going to take it out. And I was like, they think I may have cancer. He's like, it's not. So anyway, I was thinking about doing this promo video, and I'm like, wait a minute. I had to stop, and I'm like, wait a minute. If you just went to the dermatologist and they told you they thought a spot was cancer, what would be happening
he'd
for
be
you?
rocking back and forth in the corner
Exactly.
in a dark room. Yeah.
He was like, but you're not me and you're fine. You're going to be fine. I'm like, but
he
I
also
would like a little concern.
He also needs you to be fine because you're the rock.
Maybe.
So
Maybe.
It's so true.
There's
I'm the
room.
same way with Mike. I'm like, you're fine.
Yeah.
He's like, but I have this huge bulge coming out of my. I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. It feels fine. It looks fine.
You're like, I'm not anxious about it, so I know it's fine. That's really what it is, right?
It is.
I'm not feeling worried, so I know you're good.
My therapist said the best thing to me the other day, and no one understands it when I tell them. They go, everyone's like, huh? And I'm like, okay, you don't have anxiety. And I've been meaning to tell Bert this. He looked at me and goes, if you hear hooves, it's most likely a horse.
Right.
And not a zebra.
Yeah. That's
And I was like,
term. Yeah.
what? And he's like,
And not a zebra.
He's like, you expect to
It's
see like
true.
a zebra come galloping down the street. He's like, it is not.
Yeah.
It is most likely a horse and not a zebra. And I was like, that is how my brain works.
Yeah.
He's like, headache, most likely dehydration,
Not brain
not a
tumor?
tumor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
was like,
great,
yes.
what a great analogy.
They
so
tell
great.
young medical students
Brilliant.
that because they're always like, it could be this really rare disease, da, 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 da. And they're like, horses, not zebras.
Horses.
You know?
It's most likely a horse and not a
genius.
zebra.
I
I was
love
like,
that he related that to
I was
anxiety.
like, every fee I've paid you, just, it was like your weight in gold right there.
right.
He's
Yeah.
like, lovely. He's like my one line.
Your one line.
God.
But it's true. Sometimes if you get that one
do.
thing that you
You
can
can hang
recall
on to.
quickly.
I've
Yep.
told him in our
Horse, not
last
zebra.
sessions before, like a few years ago, I go, I need a mantra. I need you to give me a mantra.
Yeah.
And he's like, that is not my job. I was like, I need you to tell me a one-liner that when I start spiraling, I'm just going to repeat it. And he's like, I'm going to have time to think about that one.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think you need to come up with your own mantra. I was like, oh, it's
like,
not
I've been
happening.
doing
And he
a
gave
lot
it
of
to
this
me.
work.
He's like, it's most likely a horse and not a zebra. I was like, that makes everything in my life come full circle. And
Yeah.
I understand how my brain works.
Yeah, that's
The
great.
timeline of the universe just completely filled in and you understood everything.
But
Right.
you tell someone without anxiety that saying, and it is lost on them.
No, I get
It
it.
is
because I
lost.
live with so much.
Right. You're inundated
I am
in it.
surrounded by people.
use
who
that
have
on Bert
anxiety.
next
I will.
That's very funny.
Well, if I use it on Bert, it won't work.
right.
I will.
You got
You have to tell Bert
Yeah.
this. You should tell him my therapist told me this and it just made everything make sense.
Yep.
Because he will take the thing about Bert is if he believes you
Mhm.
or if he trusts you, he'll take the tool.
Right.
But if he doesn't, like falling on deaf ears is an understatement.
And it's almost insulting.
Almost yes, he'll be insulted.
Borderline offensive where you're
Yes.
like, okay, I'm sorry. I tried to help.
Right.
right. My bad.
My bad.
My bad.
But panic and anxiety can be like that because people don't understand. Like I had a client that kept going to the ER over and over again. And they were like, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy? I'm like, it literally feels like her heart is coming out of her chest.
Mhm. Yeah.
Her blood pressure has skyrocketed.
Mhm.
She's sweating.
Mhm.
What should she do? Should she just hang out at home?
Yeah. It's hard to
You know,
know, isn't it?
It was very hard for her to know. So it was seeing the test results in the ER, having them tell her it's just anxiety. And finally she got it treated. But it was like, if you don't understand, it is like a sensory attack,
Mhm.
you know, and you are having physical manifestations to the point where doctors actually have to run tests on you to see what it is.
Right.
It's fight or flight.
It's fight or flight.
It is,
100%.
yeah.
Your body is doing fight
Yeah.
or flight.
I know
So-
Georgia has those types of panic attacks where I can feel her heart like
Yep.
this. I mean, you can almost see her shirt moving.
Right.
Where
And
you-
the watch, that Apple Watch,
Oh, forget it.
first of all, I have to tell you, for some of my people, amazing. They're like,
Mm-mm.
okay, I'm definitely having panic and it's going to be okay. And I don't know if you ever did biofeedback. Biofeedback's amazing. So they do it. You can do it actually through a computer now, but it's like putting a little oxygen sensor on your finger,
Oh, okay.
and you look at the computer screen and you just try and kind of calm yourself down. It helps with migraines too. And like you can make a scene change on a computer. Like but back in the day, they would hook you up with
Mhm.
the little electrodes. It was like one of the things I used to do when I was a psych major, and they would have a mandala on the screen and you would have to change the wavelength of the mandala by just calming down. And then the computer responded and you would literally be able to calm yourself down. And so some of my clients have felt like when they have a reading on their watch and they're freaked out, they will try to actively make the number go down.
No, I do that.
Right?
I'm like, I've got this.
Yes.
You don't control me.
Right.
Give me 2 minutes.
So then they know they're not having a heart attack
Yeah.
because you can't control that.
You can't control
right?
it. Yes.
So, but other times I have some people who are like, oh God. And I'm like, throw your freaking Apple Watch in a lake.
Yeah.
Would you please? Like that's, some people it helps. You are not one of those people.
Yeah, right.
You know? Yeah.
So postpartum, let's see what else they say about this, because we've already been talking for an hour and a half, which is a long time.
OMG.
Here it is. When to see a doctor. When to see a doctor. When your symptoms don't fade after 2 weeks.
Which is after baby blues.
After the baby blues, yes. If your symptoms are getting worse, if it makes it hard for you to care for your baby, if it makes it hard to complete everyday tasks, and include thoughts of harming yourself or your baby. Anything to add to that?
I would say if you have ongoing fatigue, if you have just general irritability, if you feel like you are not, going with the flow of life. I mean, I don't know what else you might have experienced. Like I was in Sydney's room and in the nursing chair, and my friend, it was so funny. My friend came in and she was like mother incarnate, right? Like she was like, can I introduce you to the living room? And it was like she was like 4 months old already. And I was like, no, you must nurse in the chair. And she's like, can we just bring your stuff out here and you can like watch a little CSI while you're nursing? And I was
Open
like,
a window.
no doubt. Seriously.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And I followed her into the living room and I was like, this is nice. Nobody ever told me I could leave the chair. Like, so having, when you know that you're not really thinking clearly and that you're not as on it as you would normally be, like, I'm a problem solver, right? Like,
Yeah.
we find.
And you're a doer.
And I'm a doer.
Yeah.
And we find problem people.
Yes.
Sometimes we marry them.
Yes.
And we like to solve their problems, right? So when you kind of know that about yourself and you stop solving problems and you just kind of become a passive vegetable,
Yeah.
maybe
seek
you're a redneck. When you're going through that, like, it's time to seek help because you're just not yourself. I would say if you don't feel like you are yourself, and it's past the 2 weeks, it doesn't hurt to check.
Yeah.
It can hurt not to check.
Yeah, true.
But it doesn't hurt to check.
That's true.
And
I'm glad to hear they do those questionnaires
Yeah.
every time you go see your
I
your
think
OB.
to build on what you said, just trust your gut.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's like when something's off and then it hits and you go, this isn't right. I should talk to someone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You just know.
And especially if you get that feeling and then say, but I think I can handle it.
Or going, is this because I just had a baby or is it because I feel like this?
Right.
And I think when you're questioning that, like once you start going down that road,
Well, and like your
Mhm.
therapist said, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter what the etiology is, why it
Doesn't matter
came
why
about.
we got here. We're
Right.
here.
If you're having the
Yeah.
symptom, get it addressed.
Yeah.
Ask somebody, just check in and say, could this be what I'm experiencing?
Mhm.
And if you get told that it's not what you're experiencing, ask again.
Now, let me ask you this, Kottie. I don't remember the timeline of when you started CBT. Was it after you dealt with postpartum?
It was, wait a minute. When did I? I started meds. It was July of 2018. I had them October 2017. It was July and I started the meds and I went to them for like 4 months. So I started the meds and then started going to them. And it was weird because I was like, I'm fine. The meds kicked in. I was like, it's good.
Right.
It's at bay.
Right.
And I was like, wait, I'm going to keep going to them
Mm-hmm.
until I get off.
Mm-hmm. That was very wise
yeah.
of you.
I was like, I'm not going
Right.
to cold turkey this,
But the lesson there for people who are listening, in my opinion, is you had anxiety before you had kids.
Mm-hmm.
This was not a new thing for you. Not the postpartum was new, but having struggled with anxiety was not new.
Yeah.
So, would you say that the postpartum helped you address your anxiety, your overall anxiety issue?
It heightened everything.
But did it jumpstart you into getting
I had no option.
right?
Where I went, oh, this isn't just a lingering thing day to day.
Mm-hmm.
It triggered it. It put it into overdrive, and I went, all right, I'm going to have to, if I want to live a normal life or
it has to be addressed.
It has to be addressed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I was like, I could stay on these meds forever. I mean, the meds are nice, you know, and my therapist was like, it's good because sometimes like when you get in these states, the meds your brain is like an oven and it's overheated and the meds will bring you back down to a point where you're like mentally and emotionally available to do the therapy.
Right. To do the work. Yeah.
And so I was in that state and it was nice. And then I got all the tools and then I was like, all right, now I'm going off. Let's stay in touch. Let's keep seeing each other.
Yeah.
And, but you know, I texted him in the middle of the night the other night and I was like, I think I need a tune up.
Right.
You know,
and
I'm not using my tools.
Right.
And it's nice. He's
you
like,
should have a therapist that's like a touchstone.
Mm-hmm.
You can come back and have a session or two and not feel like you're sucked into having to do weekly sessions.
No.
Yeah.
And he's like,
I'm a
I'd be a bad
huge believer
therapist
about
if I kept you
I
on.
said the same thing.
He's like, you should not be on with me for 2 years.
Correct.
People that do that, they're not giving you the tools to go do it on your own.
Right.
Right.
You know, that is my goal.
Yeah.
Well, that is first of all, I think it's very wise and very brave of you to really take that by the balls, so to speak, and say, you don't run me, I run you. And I say this all the time about therapy. I wish that the general population looked at therapy like a car in a ditch with a flat tire.
Right.
If you're not going to change the tire yourself, if you can't change the tire yourself, you call someone, they change the tire, you get back on the road.
Right.
Why does it have to be some big stigmaed, negatively viewed process to get help, especially with something like that where you need help, you need some tools? That's exactly the way Georgia's therapist was with her.
Yeah.
We went 3 sessions, and after the 3rd session, she said, "You're good. If you ever need help, if you need a tune-up,
You know
give
where
me
to
a
find
call.
me. Yeah.
Come back." She's no intention of keeping her, making her car payments. She's just there to help.
Right.
And I think people think that therapists are there for the paycheck.
Right.
And sure, some of them are, just like some podiatrists are, just like some mechanics are. But for the most part, most people who are in that field are in the field to help people.
Right.
And they don't want you to be sick. I've been in therapy forever of my own choosing because I am married to someone who is very difficult to be married to sometimes. And I don't want to make it his problem that his issues are what makes it hard.
Right.
Why would I add to his anxiety by saying, "You're fucking anxiety," when I can go see a therapist and go, "His fucking anxiety." And he never knows that I've processed it out and now can manage with him. Not that our marriage would fall apart if I weren't in therapy.
Right.
That's not what I mean.
But you use it as a tool for yourself.
I use it as a tool for myself and also I don't have a mom.
Yeah.
So I don't have someone to call and go, "Hey, I just had an argument with my husband about this and I'm feeling like I was an asshole."
Right.
And I'm sure I could do that with my friends, but I choose to do it with this woman who's like a mentor.
Right.
She's more of a mentor at this point. She helped me work through so much stuff when I was with her earlier, but
And she
now
holds the history.
she holds the history. That's a great way of putting it. So for me, therapy is a different purpose.
Yeah.
But I have no judgment on that purpose. I think for me, it works. And if someone else chose to be in therapy for years with the same person, so be it.
Yeah, I'll try and fire people. I mean, 3 things. Number 1, you said it, you were talking about anxiety and, did the postpartum kind of bring it to a head and then you were able to treat it. If you had anxiety and depression prior to having your child, you might be a little bit more prone to having postpartum, just as a general rule. Doesn't mean you are definitely going to get it.
We're coming. It's like
You just
meet you at the hospital.
you want to know, you want to be aware, and then you don't want to blame yourself after. Like this is something you struggled with. Don't be surprised if it pops up and you need to address it. Right. So there's that, and it doesn't always happen. Right. But you're on the lookout. Number 2, about medication. I always like to tell people that are worried about going on medication, you can go to the psychiatrist, you can get a diagnosis, you can get a prescription for it, then go to the pharmacy and fill it, and you still don't have to take it.
Right.
You're in control 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just go through the process of getting the diagnosis and understanding what's going on and talking to somebody about the neurochemical reactions and why your brain isn't functioning the way it should and how this is going to help you. And be okay with that. And then you're still in control 100% of the time.
Well, you can make an informed decision.
Exactly.
Right.
At any point.
Right.
Right. And then the last thing I like to say about medication is it's normally, unless you're treating a lifelong issue like having, visual hallucinations or auditory hallucinations for something really chronic, with depression, anxiety, all of that, medication is like building the scaffolding for a bridge. And once the bridge is built in your brain, you can take the scaffolding down and things function, right? Sometimes that'll be great. And then after a while, you'll have just this crazy confluence of, somebody you love passed away, you had issues with your like just a bunch of stuff going on at the same time. You might have to go back on for a short amount of time and you're off again, but it doesn't have to be that you're constantly on medication all the time. So a lot of people are worried about it, but that's not how it is. You go on, you go off, you can,
it's
resume
nice to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, sometimes you're like, it's descending upon me.
Right.
It's back.
Right.
But to know that you can go on for 4 to 6 months and go, all right, I'm good again.
Right. My
just
brain
get me
chemistry
through this
is
season
regulated.
or whatever's happening.
Yeah.
Get you out of the ditch,
Yeah.
back on the road.
Right.
And then you can go.
Right.
I don't think most people know that once you're on it, you can get off of it.
Right.
I think most people think once you're on it, you're on it and you
Right.
can't live without it, which may be true if you don't do any kind of talk therapy in conjunction with it. You do have to make some efforts to fix what, you have to pick the phone up and call the tow truck company.
Right.
You have to,
Although-
pay the bills for your, you have to do some things.
Although I've lost some people, which has made me so happy. I had a few people come to me who were like, yeah. And I'm like, everything is fine. You're good. Like they come in, they do the work. I'm like, you need to be on a low grade antidepressant. Like that's all you need. Cause everything I ask you to do, you're doing, so they start taking it and then they start canceling. So I don't think I need to come in. I'm like, I don't think you do either. Right. I don't think I need to come in. I'm like, I don't think you do either. And then finally, I'll check in with them and 6 months later and be like, I just want to check in. You don't have to come in. How are you doing? Oh my God, I should have listened to you. I don't know why I didn't take this earlier. I feel amazing. I don't need, and I'm like, great. Bye-bye. You know where to find me if you need me. Because there was such a reticence to take it for so long. And I'm like, you are doing everything I have asked you to do and you're still struggling. Please give in.
Yeah.
Just give it, not everybody needs medication, but for those who are really pulling out all the stops,
what's wrong with that?
right. Yeah.
People have breast cancer, they're on medication for the rest of their lives,
Right.
hormone therapy, whatever. So
Right.
what? Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Be happy.
Yeah.
Your goal in life should be to be happy.
Yeah.
Whatever that makes you. You're not going to be happy every day.
Yeah.
But if your goal and intention is to be happy, then you're going to raise happy kids. You're going to have a happy marriage. You're going to have happy friendships. So just get happy. However you have to get happy. Obviously, bad things don't necessarily make you happy. But
No.
that's a false happy. I mean, real happy.
But speaking of being happy in medication, it is also not true that the medication makes you falsely happy.
No.
It does not do that. It brings your levels up to where they should be.
Yep.
It can't cause euphoria. And a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to just be happy for no damn reason. I'm like, well, first of all, why? But anyway,
Why not, right?
Yeah. Right. Why not? But yeah, it doesn't give you an over excessive amount of dopamine where you're just going to be like, I can walk off this bridge and I'm fine.
Right.
It just regulates everything that has been depleted.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
so
It's good to know.
a lot of people freak out about that too. I don't want to have moods that aren't mine. I'm like,
No, it doesn't
No.
make you artificially happy.
right.
But it fills that void of going, I am so sick of worrying about this every single day. It's like that little cloud.
Yep.
I mean, it's like the old
Follows you.
Zoloft commercial, remember?
Oh, yeah.
With the cloud over the egg.
Yep.
We were like,
Yeah,
and I
it's-
always think in my head, I'm like, is this 1 to 5? How often am I feeling like this past week or the
Right.
last month? And right now I'm having moments where I'm like, I'm at a 5. It's every day where I go, I feel a little bit, and it's
poking it.
pandemic. It's, having 2 kids finally. It's
Right.
just a lot, but it doesn't really make you, there's no increased,
No.
you see butterflies.
Right. Although I will say when they start taking it, they will say things to me like, I never noticed how green the trees were.
Oh my God,
Or-
that's so true.
Really?
It is so true.
Yeah. And I started singing.
Why?
I started singing in the car because you don't realize how far down
Yeah.
the well you are
is so true.
until
Really?
you come out.
I went on a
What?
walk and it was during that butterfly migration. That's when I started. Do you remember
Yes,
that?
yes,
Bert
I
was
do.
obsessed with it.
Yes,
Oh my
I
God, I
do.
drove 5
And there was
miles an hour
there were
everywhere 'cause I didn't want to hit any.
Swarms
Right.
of butterflies, and I just started Lexapro,
like,
and I was like, "It's so freaking beautiful out."
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And the sad thing is
You
you are depriving yourself of that.
Mhm.
That's what normal people feel.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. I
Yeah.
see stuff all the time. I look at that amazing blah, blah, blah. And
Yep.
Bert's like,
Meh.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, some things like sunsets and stuff he really sees, but it
Yeah.
has to be something spectacular.
Yeah.
He can't see it in a rose in my bush. He doesn't
Right.
see that. And I
Right.
go, well, why? It's so beautiful. It smells
Yeah.
so great. I love
Mhm.
it. Well, thank you for talking about this today. Is there anything you want to add for anybody listening who may be suffering from postpartum or anything, either of you, any advice?
Not alone.
Yeah, not alone is a big one.
It's a good piece of advice. You're not alone.
You didn't do anything to deserve it.
Right.
And
You
it
know.
goes away.
And it
It
does
does.
go away, but
It
it
will.
doesn't mean you should wait for
No,
it
no,
to
no,
go
no.
away.
No.
Yeah, and it has no bearing on your ability to be a mother.
No.
It just comes from a biochemical place and a reaction that you didn't anticipate.
And it's
there's-
okay to get help. Go
And
get
it's
help.
Totally.
And I guess the one thing I would add is it's not only okay to get help, it will enhance your entire experience as a parent
Right.
to have relief.
Right.
So get the relief because it just makes everything that much easier,
Mhm.
better, happier,
Mhm.
Yeah.
And as parents, the two of us of kids that are about to leave the nest,
It's really rough.
it is really
I
rough.
feel like I cry during their college counseling meeting.
I know, right? It's pretty rough.
Wade
It's
looks
pretty
at me
rough.
like, you're special. I'm like, never said I wasn't.
Oh, it's pretty rough. But why would you waste any time
Yeah.
being unhappy
Mhm.
when it's a simple solution to get happy? Relatively simple
Yeah.
solution to get happy. So thank you guys for talking about this today. I really
you.
appreciate it. I know it took us a long time to get this on the books, but I've been dying to talk about it because
Yeah.
I feel like it's again one of those subjects that maybe people talk about it all the time now. I'm glad to hear these surveys are happening in every
me
visit.
too.
But when I was pregnant and when I was having young kids, nobody talked about it. So
Yeah.
I feel like mental health is having a nice little rebirth.
bring it
And
on.
it came out from the pandemic. Like everybody has to be aware now.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love it because every single person has something.
Yep.
If it's depression or anxiety or, trauma, or everybody has something. And there just should be no shame in asking for help. It should be a point of pride to say, I went and got help and look how happy I am.
Yeah.
Because, the greatest reflection of God is to live your best life. Because that then inspires other people to do the same. Isn't that what the good Lord says?
I wouldn't know.
Something like that.
Yeah, no, it really, and being an example for others, including your children.
Yeah.
Like if you're not happy, they can totally pick up on it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely a path to happy. You just have to find it. All right. Well, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.